In the heartland of America, amidst the vast golden fields of Kansas, a story unfolded that starkly contrasted the serene landscape. This tale, set against the backdrop of the quiet town of Burlingame, is not merely a recounting of events, but a deep dive into the darkest recesses of the human soul. The Kahler family tragedy, a case that reverberated through the quiet streets of this small community, challenges our very understanding of family, love, and betrayal. It began like any other story of American success. Craig Kahler, a man who had climbed the professional ladder with a blend of ambition and technical acumen, seemed to epitomize the dream of a prosperous life. As the director of Water and Light in Columbia, Missouri, he was a respected figure, a pillar in his community. To the outside world, the Kahlers were the quintessential American family, successful, attractive, and well-liked. But beneath this facade of suburban bliss, there lurked a tumultuous undercurrent that would eventually lead to a catastrophic unraveling. Craig Kahler's story began far from the tragic end it would eventually meet. Born and raised in the heartland of America, his early life was seemingly unremarkable, a tapestry of small-town values and simple pleasures. He grew up understanding the virtues of hard work, discipline, and the importance of family. As he matured, these values steered him towards a path of ambition and success. His academic achievements were notable, leading him to a career that many would envy. He was a man who seemed to have grasped the American dream firmly in both hands. His professional journey was marked by a steady ascent. He earned respect and admiration in his field, eventually rising to a prominent position as the Director of Water and Light in Columbia, Missouri. This role was not just a job, it was a testament to his skills and determination. Craig, with his sharp mind and eye for detail, was seen as a man who could solve complex problems, a leader who could guide with confidence and expertise. However, like many who reach such heights, the pressures were immense. The demands of his career, the constant juggling of responsibilities, began to take a toll. Friends and colleagues noticed subtle changes. The once easygoing and approachable Craig seemed increasingly withdrawn, more prone to mood swings. The stress of his job, the unrelenting drive to succeed, began to erode the easy demeanor he had once possessed. His marriage to Karen, initially a source of joy and partnership, began to reflect the stress of his professional life. They had met in a simpler time, their love story one of shared dreams and aspirations. Together they built a life, welcoming 2 daughters and a son into their world. But as the years passed, the strain began to show. Their home life, once filled with laughter and warmth, started to feel the impact of Craig's growing stress and Karen's own struggles with their changing relationship. The cracks in their marriage widened over time. Arguments became more frequent, the disconnect more pronounced. Karen, feeling increasingly isolated and unheard, found solace outside their marriage. This was a turning point, a catalyst that propelled Craig into a spiral of jealousy and control. His reaction to Karen's actions was not just one of hurt, but of betrayal and a deep sense of loss. He began to exhibit signs of possessive behavior, his once loving concern turning into something darker, more oppressive. As the days turned into months and months into years, the once steady foundation of the Kahler family began to show signs of deep, irreparable cracks. The transformation of Craig Kahler, a change so gradual yet so profound, marked the beginning of a tragic downward spiral. From a respected professional and a loving family man, Craig began to morph into a figure of resentment and anger, especially towards his wife, Karen. The descent was not sudden, but it was steady. Craig's demeanor, once marked by a confident, easygoing nature, started to become tinged with paranoia and jealousy. The stress of his job, once a source of pride, became a yoke around his neck, a constant reminder of the mounting pressures and expectations. As his professional life began to feel more like a battleground, his personal life too started to mirror this turmoil. Craig's relationship with Karen, which had once been the cornerstone of his life, became a source of deep-seated insecurity. Karen's growing independence and her pursuit of personal happiness outside their marriage were perceived by Craig not just as a betrayal, but as a direct challenge to his identity and control. His response was not one of introspection or communication, but of increasing surveillance and control over Karen's activities. He began to monitor her phone calls, her movements, even installing surveillance equipment in their home, all in a desperate attempt to regain control. This period also saw a marked change in Craig's relationship with his children. The once doting father became more distant and authoritarian. His interactions with his daughters, Emily and Lauren, and his son Sean, became strained, marked by a rigid insistence on discipline and control. The warmth and affection that had once defined their family life were replaced by an atmosphere of tension and apprehension. As the marriage continued to deteriorate, Karen sought emotional support elsewhere, eventually finding it in a same-sex relationship. This development was a tipping point for Craig, who saw it as the ultimate humiliation and betrayal. His behavior became increasingly erratic and unpredictable, his outbursts of anger more frequent and intense. The home, once a haven of safety and love, turned into a place of fear and uncertainty. Thanksgiving 2009 in Burlingame, Kansas, was supposed to be a time of familial warmth and gratitude, a moment for the Kahler family to come together amidst the trials of their fracturing relationships. However, this holiday marked a turning point, a descent into an abyss from which there would be no return. The events of that weekend would leave an indelible scar on the community and send shockwaves through the nation. The day began with the familiar Thanksgiving rituals, the aroma of turkey roasting in the oven, the laughter of children playing, and the anticipation of a family gathering. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, tension simmered. Craig Kahler, his mind clouded by jealousy and a deep sense of betrayal, was on the precipice of committing an act so heinous it would shatter the very foundation of the family he once cherished. As the evening approached, the simmering tension reached a boiling point. Craig, unable to contain the storm of emotions raging within him, armed himself with a high-powered rifle. In a chilling and calculated manner, he embarked on a path that would lead to unimaginable tragedy. One by one, he methodically took the lives of his estranged wife Karen, their daughters, Emily and Lauren, and Karen's grandmother, Dorothy White. Their home, once a symbol of their successful and happy life, became a scene of unimaginable horror. The brutality of the act was staggering in its coldness and precision. It was a stark contrast to the warm, loving father and husband Craig had once been. The transformation from a respected community member to a perpetrator of such a violent act left those who knew him in disbelief. The only survivor of this tragedy was their son, Sean, who miraculously escaped the carnage. The horror he witnessed that day would forever change the course of his life, leaving him to grapple with the loss of his family and the haunting memories of that fateful Thanksgiving. The initial response to the crime scene was one of shock and disbelief. The officers who first entered the Kahler home were met with a tableau of devastation. The evidence was stark and unyielding. The lifeless bodies of Karen Kahler, her two daughters, and her grandmother, each a silent testament to the brutality of their final moments. It was a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned investigators. As the investigation progressed, the focus quickly turned to Craig Kahler. The evidence pointed overwhelmingly to him as the perpetrator. Interviews with friends, family, and acquaintances began to paint a picture of a man unraveling, consumed by jealousy and anger. The surveillance equipment he had installed in his home, his obsessive monitoring of Karen's activities, and his increasingly erratic behavior all pointed to a man losing his grip on reality. The trial of Craig Kahler was a highly publicized and emotionally charged event. The courtroom became the stage for a narrative of domestic turmoil, psychological unraveling, and ultimate tragedy. Prosecutors presented a case that depicted Craig as a man driven to violence by his inability to control his wife and his life. They detailed the gradual breakdown of the Kahler marriage, the escalating tension, and Craig's descent into obsessive surveillance and control. In contrast, the defense sought to paint a different picture. They argued that Craig was a man suffering from severe mental health issues, that his actions, while inexcusable, were the result of a mind pushed beyond its limits. They pointed to the stress of his job, the breakdown of his marriage, and his subsequent mental decline as factors that contributed to his actions on that tragic Thanksgiving day. Witness testimonies, especially from the couple's surviving son, Sean, added a deeply personal and heartbreaking dimension to the proceedings. His account of the events and the impact on his life added a poignant and humanizing element to the clinical details of the case. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict. Craig Kahler was convicted on multiple counts of first-degree murder. The verdict was met with mixed emotions, relief for some, profound sadness for others. For many, it was a sobering reminder of the potential for hidden darkness within seemingly ordinary lives. The aftermath of the trial was marked by a community in mourning. Burlingame, Kansas, a small town unaccustomed to such tragedy, grappled with the enormity of the crime. Neighbors, friends, and family members of the victims sought to make sense of the senseless, to understand how a man like Craig, who had once been an integral part of their community, could commit such unfathomable acts. The tragedy became a catalyst for discussions about domestic violence, mental health, and the often hidden struggles within seemingly normal families. For Sean, the sole surviving member of the Kahler family, the trial's conclusion was a bittersweet moment. While justice had been served, it could not bring back his mother, sisters, or grandmother. His testimony during the trial, a poignant and brave account of his family's final moments, left an indelible mark on all who heard it. The path to healing for Sean was a long and uncertain one, fraught with the memories of that tragic Thanksgiving day and the loss of his loved ones. The case also had a significant impact on the broader community. It raised awareness about the importance of recognizing and addressing signs of domestic unrest and mental health issues. Schools, community centers, and local governments began to implement programs aimed at providing support and resources for those in troubled domestic situations. The tragedy of the Kahler family served as a stark reminder of the need for vigilance and the importance of community support in preventing such tragedies. As we reflect on this tragic story, let us honor the memory of the lives lost by committing to a deeper awareness and understanding of the complex issues of mental health and domestic violence. The legacy of the Kahler family, though born of tragedy, can inspire a future where such despair is met with empathy, support, and intervention, creating safer, more understanding communities for all.